So next order of business, which is going to be a little more fun, is replacing the camshaft with a stage 2 from TDI. So we have to get the cam sprocket bolt loosened, take off the front end bearing cap for the camshaft to be able to hit the sprocket with a punch. If you want to do it properly, there are pullers. I mean, probably I even have a puller that would work, but you hook a puller behind the center hub there, and with the bolt out part way, you put the center of it on there, but you got this stuff to fight with, of course. But the proper way, quote, is to do it with a puller. I've never done it that way. I've done several Mark II timing belts. This is the first Mark IV, but that process is exactly the same. It's a Morse taper the sprocket to the camshaft. So you back the bolt out, not very much, like maybe a half a turn or a turn. And then one good smack with the hammer and the punch, which I will show when we get to that point, to get the sprocket loose from the taper. And in this case, we're going to take the sprocket right off. If you were just doing a timing belt, you would not. And you would also only take off the end 2 caps if you're going to. You don't have to remove this cap if you're going to use a puller, but if you're going to do it my way, you pull this cap as well. Because we're going to put another shaft in, we have to pull all of the bearing caps. And the fun with that is some of the valves have spring tension on them right now. So that makes it a little more interesting to get the caps back on afterwards with the new shaft, because I don't believe there's any way to have all of the valves up at once. At least based on the 4-cycle principle, there shouldn't be. So that's going to present a bit of fun when it comes to removing this camshaft, not so much, but putting the new camshaft in for sure. Alright, so let the fun begin as I bump the camera. So, doesn't really matter what order you do these things in, but we're going to take the front end camshaft bearing cap off, and then we'll crack the camshaft sprocket bolt loose, and hopefully then knock the taper free. Good that somebody knew to put. It doesn't even have anything. It was just that stuck to the seal. That's crazy. Sometimes you put and actually, yeah, they didn't do it on this one. You put a bead of RTV. I mean, you have to put a bead of RTV for the valve cover if you want it to seal anyways. But under the end of the cap, really should have a bead, because the seal is inside the cap and the valve cover is outside the cap, so there's really nothing to actually keep the oil from going right under the cap. Now, there shouldn't be very much oil going under the cap, but if it's actually a precision machine surface. But anyways. Alrighty. So then now we have not very much room, but we have access to hit the back side of the cam sprocket with a punch. But first we need to loosen the bolt, which should be that should be the right size. Yeah, 18mm for the camshaft bolt. You just go like one turn here, should be enough to get the taper free. And then we'll hit it with a hammer and punch here. Hopefully that will do it. We could get a bigger hammer, but let's try this one to start with. That's pretty snug, ain't it? So, I don't know if I can do this, but should be able to if you can hold it straight and tight and get one good crack on it. Should be all it takes to get the camshaft sprocket loose. Of course, it would not hesitate to prove me wrong. Try a little bigger hammer so I don't have to kill myself with it. There we go. That was probably even harder than I needed to hit it, but that's all it takes, or all it should take. So our cam sprocket is now loose. And like I mentioned, in this case, we're just going to take it off because the camshaft is going to come out. So, and you have to take it off anyways if you're going to change. I guess what I said earlier is not correct. You have to take it off if you're going to change the camshaft oil seal. Now, a lot of times people don't, so you don't have to worry about taking it off to change the seal because the seal has to go out the end. But either way, you have to crack it loose. Why does that have a... Camshaft has a keyway in it, but you can't use a key for this style of timing. So maybe the camshaft is used in more than one engine. But anyways, freaking dandelion, whatever seeds floating all around here now, which is not good when you're working on an engine. This again is why I wish I had a proper shop that's closed up and properly lit and ventilated. But anyways, I digress again. So the camshaft oil seal, we should be able to slip out of there fairly easily now. There's not really much to see, and the camshaft oil seal is way easier than the crankshaft. You should be able to just walk it off just like that. And on this one, also looking at the amount of oil and dirt and gunge on the outside of the seal, this seal is leaking as well. And I'm just guessing if I were to wipe the oil off of it, that it would show that it's an original Volkswagen seal as well. Because if the seals were done with the last timing belt, they shouldn't be leaking by now, I wouldn't think. Now, the only other thing to consider with that is how long it's been. Mileage is one thing, but this car sat for at least 1 year before I bought it. And then it sat mostly for part of another year once I bought it, although I had been running it at that point. But yeah, I would think normally if the seals were done with the last belt, normal, driving, so it would be about 5 years usually, or 5. If you do 30,000 kilometers a year, 30, 60, 90, 120, 150. So yeah, about between 5 and 6 years, normal driving, not including any sitting for any period of time. One thing that people don't realize that isn't really shared knowledge a lot of the time, technically, if a timing belt sits for an extended period of time, even if it was replaced not too long before it was parked, it's supposed to be replaced again because it gets dried out and brittle in that position that it was sitting. And then when you run it again and ask it to work, then that's when it can break down and let go and you wreck your engine. So now we can take the rest of the, let's take our, this is our timing block tools are relevant now because there's nothing tying anything to anything else. One thing that's important is that we make sure that we don't put the camshaft in, the new camshaft in upside down. It's a slot, so it can be one of two ways to be horizontal, And the biggest thing is that the lobes for number 1 are in the same position as they are here, 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock basically. So that both valves are up, which tells you you're on compression for number 1. So we'll use that for the cap again. That's just extra. Okay. So I'm thinking, because I think number 4 valves are up, and 2 and 3, one of the 2 valves is down. 1 intake, 1 exhaust, I think. Because this engine should be exhaust, intake. Oh, it is every other. Exhaust, intake, exhaust, intake. Oh, and then it switches. Intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust. So I guess it doesn't really matter. We're gonna have some spring back here as we release these, because there's valves that are open still. At least there should be spring back, I would think. Are these tight again? Yeah, okay, so not a big deal. I think what I'll maybe do is take the middle one all the way off first. Also be loose, aside from the oil surface tension. And then now it didn't spring across the rim, so I'd say we're good for valve spring tension. We've got all of our bearing caps off, out of the way, and we'll probably do a quick cleanup on them before we put the new camshaft in. Probably all I will do is just with a clean towel wipe the bearing surfaces and make sure that they look like they're in good shape. And then put some fresh oil on the bearing surfaces and on the new camshaft. And then I think we should be able to put it back together. At least we can put the middle 3 caps on. Oh, and while we got the shaft out of the way, we'll clean up the head sealing surface of the oil seal, which it's just flogged with oil right now, so I'm assuming that seal wasn't doing much of anything. But let's back this up a little bit, actually. We should now be able to lift the camshaft out of here, I think. Ta-da! And somehow I've got anti-seize on me and I haven't touched anything with anti-seize on it. Oh, the joys. Alright, so we'll set this aside. I'm not going to throw it out, that's for sure. So there we have it. There was no valve lifter noise out of this car before I took it apart, so I'm not going to touch any of the lifters. That's just opening a can of worms for no reason. And everything looks good. There is some, quote, contaminant on all of the lifter caps, but could be dust from the shop towel. Like, this is supposed to be a surgical operation, as we have seeds floating through the air. That's always wonderful. So yeah, we'll just go through here. We got freaking oil weeping out the other end too, but it's because all of these, you can't see it from the camera angle, but all of these camshaft bearing caps have an oil hole on this side, so that the bearing is being constantly supplied by oil when the engine's running. Because there is no bearing, it's just a hardened steel camshaft in an aluminum bearing, which is like the worst idea ever. But it works if you keep it flogged with oil. So, let's start down here, I guess, and just try and soak up the oil flog. It's looking spiffy span for the oil seal here, at least, other than all the gunnery on the outside part of it. Maybe try and take some of that off. But the engine is open, so you be careful what you're doing with wire brushes and stuff. It would be nice to get some of this off of here. I'm going to get a little aerosol cap with some oil set up with this brush to go through and brush all of the bearings and the camshaft as well once it's in before we put the top caps on. And then we'll unpackage the new camshaft and we'll go from there. Alright, so let's do a bit of a quick unbox of our camshaft here. It says right here on the box, right, suitable for VWALH. I'm not sure what the C640H is, and then we got that it's a stage 2. Come on. Alright, get rid of that. It's definitely not going to stay there. So it does come relatively well packaged up. I hope that everything is the same. Yeah, it even has the keyway in it. Alright, so let's take this kind of cool expanded plastic off of here and we'll keep that. I might just package the old camshaft back up in this packaging, and that way I know it's safe. Alright, here we go. I'm not sure what the orange and the blue mean. It's probably something to do with balancing if I had to guess. And I wanted to got a spot there already. Surface rust from being out in the humidity here if I had to guess. So I'm not going to show this because it'd be too hard to do, I think, but I'm just going to hold it up to the old camshaft and see what kind of difference we're looking at. I know it's not going to be much. In fact, it's almost indiscernible. But supposedly it's supposed to be, I don't remember if it's a little bit higher lift on the lobe or if it's just steeper lobe or a sharper point or both. But it's not going to be much of a difference. The camshaft alone doesn't really do much for performance, maybe a tiny little bit. Supposedly there's supposed to be a slightly different sound, which is what I'm kind of looking forward to. But then once we've got look at all the freaking seeds, jeez. Gotta hurry up and get this thing covered up again. What I'm looking forward to is the combination of the cam with the upgraded turbocharger that we've got a fresh rebuild here, and then doing a stage 2 ECU tune. I don't know how much horsepower it'll give us increase, probably not a lot, but should be a noticeable power difference as far as driving the car. Now, it's going to be a noticeable power difference driving the car without the tune after this, because I'm used to not having a properly functioning turbo for the last however long. So it's going to be kind of too many things at once, which is unfortunate because it would be nice to take a car that is properly functioning as a stock setup and then do the camshaft and the turbo upgrade and the tune, and then be able to see or feel an actual difference in performance would be nice, but it doesn't always work out that way, especially not for me. Now the problem is, can't set this down anywhere. So it's way off there now. Let's bring this back in. Can't set this down, and I need to show and oil here at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to try and juggle this without dropping anything or making a mess. So we're going to put oil. I don't know where to put this so that I don't get it everywhere else while we're trying to do this. We're going to put some oil on all of the bearing caps here, or bearing bottoms, I guess you would say, rather. Now, with that being said, there's probably no reason to put any on the shaft itself. So now the trick is to get this in here without, like I said before, we need our camshaft in the right rotation here, otherwise we're going to be really buggered. Oops, the plastic cup doesn't fit there too well. Okay, keep that. So it's kind of in. We're gonna have a lot of fun trying to get the friggin' valve springs compressed enough, or I guess it might be the hydraulic valve lifters, which would be better, but whatever valve spring tension there is, we're gonna have a fun time trying to compress that using the bearing caps without damaging anything. So that's why it's really important to take them down equally again. So most of that looks pretty good as far as the get out of here, fuzzies. Yeesh. Good. So like I said before, I'm just going to try and get the middle three caps back on. We'll probably start with that one and this one, and we'll try to bring them down squarely and evenly, and it'll be actually better if it got stuck. It'd be better if we can start it a little bit high so that that's actually falling into the end bearing already. We'll try and get it so that 2 and 4 of the caps are holding it in place and level, and then we'll take them down slowly, compress the springs, and get the middle one on, and then we can probably torque those 3 right up. And then the camshaft seal can go on, and then we can torque up that one. Other than we're going to have to do RTV on that, so that'll be maybe a later point. But let's get the middle 3 on here and get them snugged down and then torqued up, and then probably get this thing covered up before any more fuzzies get into it. You gotta be really careful at this point, because it does not take much to distort the caps or the bearings surfaces on the head, because again, it's all aluminum. So we're going to try, like I mentioned, to get caps 2 and 4 on and everything straight, and I'll probably even try and hold the camshaft in the straight position so that we can take the spring tension down without distorting anything. So what we'll do, number 2 here is a lot further ahead than number 4. So make those two nuts the same. And then we'll come down here and I'm going to try and help it a bit because there's not much thread holding these at all. Pretty good for center, left to right on the engine itself. So we're just gonna, because we're pretty much to the same place here now, so we're just gonna do each nut quarter turn until we're looking like we're down in place. Okay, those ones came to a nice hard stop. I'm not sure what's up with these ones. That one did finally. And there's that one. Good. Good, good. So, then we're looking good on the sprocket end cap. It looks like everything's shifted. Well, the middle one's right on though. But we can't really be off one way or the other because the vacuum pump drive there and also our timing is held side to side. The only thing I don't know is there's probably not supposed to be any tension on either side of that, which I think right now we're hard tight against the outer end there, which is probably not going to fly. So let's actually take a look at the manual for camshaft if I can find it. Okay, so I think what we're going to do, we'll get the feel gauge set and I'm just going to make the 2 gaps on the 2 sides of the vacuum pump bearing there. I'm just going to make them the same, that way we know it's not eating the aluminum because we got a steel shaft. We don't want it chewing away at the aluminum either side. So I'll go get those and then we'll see what we can do about setting the gap on that a little bit. And then we'll get the, because we'll loosen off caps 2 and 4 again to be able to shuffle it sideways a little bit, hopefully. And then we'll tighten those back down and we'll put cap 3 on and then we can torque the 3 of them up if we're happy with that.